here to tell you that we have with us a structural engineer who is a lady, none other than engineer Grace Kagondu. It's great to have you with us. This is a field that many say it's a man's field. You've been able to get into it. How did you do that?
Most people think it's a man's forte, but I found that with the right preparation from school, it is possible. Yeah, I started with a good performance in the science subjects. We did well in the maths and physics and chemistry. And because engineering requires a high pass mark for university, so we had to do well in those science subjects. And our career mistress also at school, she encouraged us girls to go into the sciences and take up those science careers. So a few of us took the challenge and we went into civil engineering at the University of Nairobi. So I graduated with civil engineering, and thereafter I was lucky to get exposed in consultancy firms that had a lot of building projects. And there is where I got a lot of actual exposure. Yes. Design calculations, I spent a lot of time in the design office. I spent a lot of time on the site, because you have to go to the site to make sure that what you're designing and what you can see is what is coming up. Yeah. And then I had to work with very skilled, let's say my seniors were very skilled. I was lucky to work with very, I can say very highly trained structural engineers themselves. Great. So in the process you learn a lot.
Is it something you've always wanted to do? Have you always wanted to be a structural engineer?
Honestly, I flowed into it. Yeah, because when I left university, my first employer had a lot of building projects. So I got assigned into a lot of those projects. When I went to my second employer, the international consultancy firm, again he had a lot of building projects, and I was assigned to them. In fact, I ended up being posted to one of the biggest sites in Nairobi then. That was the Times Tower project. And from there on, you know, you spend a lot of time, you hone your skills, and it's very difficult now to diversify to any other field. You
had mentioned about the academic demands, which are definitely a lot of pressure. How are you able to manage that?
While at the university, we found that the schedule was very tight. We had to attend classes, we had to take part in field work, we had to do lab tests, we had to do assignments, there were cuts. So we were very busy almost all the time. We could hardly take part in the comrade Kamukonjis, we could hardly take part in the strikes or the mass actions. We always missed out because of trying to keep up with our studies. And of course we knew that it would not be the end. After that we would still have to, we wanted to pass well, because you wanted to get either a first class or an upper second. In my case, I got an upper second, which was good enough. And then thereafter, I wanted to make sure that I got registered as a professional engineer, because that is really the hallmark of a fully qualified engineer. Yes. And I was very thrilled when I eventually got it.
So on a normal day, how does your schedule look like as a structural engineer?
To be honest, it has been changing quite a lot over the years. In those early years, I spent most of the time in the design office, which meant that I was always with a calculator, with a square root pad for the calculations, on the computer, and in the drawing office, because the drawings were done on a drawing board. But as time went on, I spent more time on the site. So on a typical day, I would be studying the drawings ahead of the actual construction work, and liaising with architects and quantity surveyors or services engineers, just to make sure that everything is well coordinated, so that when the contractor starts pouring the concrete, everything is properly placed and the levels are right, and all the provisions have been properly taken care of.
Okay. You've mentioned that you work with a team. You've talked about quantity surveyors, architects. So how does that go about?
I can tell you that we work as a team. There's no one person or one aspect that you can do without, because the architect is the one who takes the client's idea from the mind and puts it on a drawing. Yes. And everybody is able to see this is the tangible product, this is the final output that is desired. So the structural engineer comes on board to make sure that he designs a structure that is sound, that is stable, and that is also durable and comfortable to use. And so you do a lot of structural analysis to come up with the right components, the right column sizes, beams, foundations, roof, and overall dimensions. The quantity surveyor must be there, because he's the one to cost this project. Yes. He's the one to keep track of the cost and make sure the funds don't run out midway. That would be very awkward. And the services engineers are also on board because they have to make sure there's electricity in that building, there's water running, flowing well. They have to make sure there's air conditioning and the lifts are running well. So you can see clearly everybody must do their bit.
Because structural engineering offers a great contribution. Residential developments, buildings, bridges, so much. It entails so much. How have you been able to manage?
For me, it meant opting for a simpler life. Yeah, there are many things I don't participate in or engage with because I realized I need to put time aside for keeping up with the technological changes. There have been so many innovations in our sector. There have been changes in societal expectations. You have to keep up with those expectations. And also in the way that we do things, there's more innovation coming up.
And you have to keep up with
And you have to keep up with it. In fact, I have had to go back to school to study the law, just to be able to understand some of the impediments and challenges we come across on a day-to-day life.
Would you recommend this field of engineering, specifically structural engineering, to a young female engineer who has not yet known what field they would want to go into?
What the career entails, I probably would have thought twice about it. But having gone through the road, I would encourage a lady engineer to do the civil engineering because that is where you now are able to specialize in so many areas. For example, structural engineering. Because you hardly do structural at the university, you'll do it as a subunit within civil engineering. So you need to do civil engineering, then you can have so many options in which you can take your career. Yeah, so I would definitely encourage them to do so, and I'm always available myself. I've made time to support and encourage young ladies doing engineering.
Tell us about the stereotypes that you had to deal with as a woman in this field. You've mentioned about how sometimes you'd come in and people would think you're coming to help, but hey, you're the engineer.
I probably would have thought twice about it. But having gone through the road, I would encourage a lady engineer to do the civil engineering because that is where you now are able to specialize in so many areas. For example, structural engineering. Because you hardly do structural at the university, you'll do it as a subunit within civil engineering. So you need to do civil engineering, then you can have so many options in which you can take your career. Yeah, so I would definitely encourage them to do so, and I'm always available myself. I've made time to support and encourage young ladies doing engineering.
Is there one thing you found very challenging in the years you've been in structural engineering? Tell us about that.
What I found is that somewhere along the way, there was inadequate capacity, for example, in the support, the team that we need to support us, for example, at the technical level, at the artisan level. We find that they were not properly skilled. Many of them did not have the proper training. So whereas you have the design, you have got the drawings, you have got everything right, it cannot be easily translated by the team, the contractor's team, because this team is composed of people who are not properly trained.
Yes.
So you find that you are engaging with a lot more supervision than you should have, and in some sites where you have an inspector of work, that was pretty good. But if you didn't have an inspector of work, that would turn out to be a very big challenge. There you find that, for example, you have got National Construction Authority, NCA, Housing Finance, and other corporates trying to train people at that level, the artisans. This is where we get the electricians, the plumbers, the carpenters. You see, nowadays we are finding they're getting trained. So in the market, you'll be able to find people who can actually do the work. And I see when the government has taken a lot of interest in that particular area.
Field,
in that particular field, you find the knitters taking up that challenge, the Tibet Authority. There's a lot of interest in supporting that particular niche. So I do think that things are improving and things will change.
All right. Tell us about your achievements so far. What have you achieved as a structural engineer?
I have, I'll tell you my high moments.
Yes.
My high moments were when I got registered as an engineer. I became a professionally qualified engineer. That was back in 2002. So I was able now to use the title engineer. I really felt good about that.
Grace.
Yeah. And also I got my master's, an MBA in project management and finance, also in 2002. I was very happy about that as well. In terms of the projects I've been involved with, for me it has to be the Times Tower. For quite a long time, it was the tallest building in East and Central Africa. And I was so happy to have been part of that team from the design work to the time it was being put up to the very end. So it was a feather in my cap. I really enjoyed that. And of course I grew tremendously. Thereafter, I would say my family. I'm very proud of my family, my 3 boys, including Mr. Kagondu.
It's part of it.
It's part of it, part of the 3.
And we're proud of you. Congratulations for this far you've come. Tell us about some of the professional bodies that you are in. Definitely we know about AAK. You could probably just mention a little bit about that and how it has helped you expand in your profession.
I'm a member in Architectural Association of Kenya, the engineers chapter, because the AAK has 7 chapters for the different disciplines for the built and natural environment. So naturally I fit in the engineers chapter. I'm also a registered engineer, which means the EBK, Engineers Board of Kenya, and also a member of the Institute of Engineers of Kenya, the IEK. Now, in the AEK, it's a very good opportunity for us to network and grow as professionals, because we are able to lobby for areas that, for matters that affect us, the practice, the professionals. And we're able to support each other in continuous professional development, for example, because that is a core calling for each of us, because otherwise we'll not be able to serve our clients properly. Yeah, so that is one thing we know. And through our networks, we're able to meet other stakeholders, like NEMA, for example. We meet the Nairobi County government, the authorities. We need to work with all these people so that they can know our expectations and they can also know our expectations. And we're able to have those dialogues, those kind of dialogues. Also dialogue with Kenya Property Development Association. Yeah, so those dialogues are very, very important in growing all of us in our particular areas of interest.
The day-to-day life of a structural engineer, making it even more better that it is a lady we've been talking to. Yes, structural engineering has a lot. You need to commit, you need to be dedicated, have a lot of effort. But if you're in the field of civil engineering, you could consider going the structural way.